Our next personality is the driving force behind the growth and expansion of one of the world's leading multinational e-commerce corporations, eBay. With over 25 years of general management expertise and having held several top marketing and analytics leadership roles in various parts of the world, including the last 10 years in India itself, we are honored to have the Senior Director of Finance and Analytics at eBay, Mr. Ashish Singru, sir. In addition to many global awards, he has been recognized as one of the top 10 most influential leaders in analytics in India and is also the co-author of the Black Book on Exponential Technologies. With a thunderous rounds of applause, we are extremely delighted to welcome you. Sir, over to you. Sir, you are actually muted. Please unmute.
Yes. Yes. Sorry. I think that's a, a common issue nowadays in our Zoom world, right? Like however many times we learn not to keep ourselves muted, we end up muting ourselves. So no, thank you, Ayush, for the kind introduction, and I think it's my privilege to be part of this community today for the next 1 hour. I can see almost 130 odd folks on this call. So great to see the enthusiasm among all the students, I guess from different parts of India. And I think I had a chance to listen to the last 15-20 minutes of your previous speaker. I think he was making some very brilliant points. I wish I had actually been able to listen to his whole session, but very inspiring tips and thoughts from Mr. Narasimha. I hope all of you were taking notes from him, right? Okay, great. So I think the topic that I had thought of actually might be a good continuation of the theme you were hearing from Mr. Narasimha, because I think he was giving you a lot of tips on how to plan for interviews, practice for interviews, etc. So my talk is also along the themes of your career and how to plan your career. It's not a technical talk. It's more around because if you are at the crucial stage where you have multiple options, let's say in front of you, and you're trying to decide, I wanted to sort of give you some flavor from one of the domains that could be an attractive domain for you, which is analytics. So currently I'm heading the Global Analytics Center for eBay, one of the prominent e-commerce companies in the world. And I've been with this company and I've set up this capability from the beginning about 10 years ago. And so today, we feel really proud to have a very prominent center which the company relies on. And one of the reasons why I thought like it would be good for me to share my thoughts is also because when I was at your stage, I had not thought of doing analytics as a career, right? So I was actually primarily interested in marketing as a space. So I'd done engineering and then I'd done MBA and then I wanted to be in marketing. And I did enter the marketing space. But through the marketing space, I got into marketing analytics as part of my job. And then that over the years then led me to go deeper into doing various kinds of analytics, not just marketing analytics, but also financial analytics. And then at eBay, I was part of the finance. I've been part of the finance organization. So I think remember that you may have some interesting career choices today in front of you. Obviously, you should choose careers from that set. But that doesn't mean that in 15 years, 20 years from now, by the time you reach, let's say, the point in your career that I have reached, you may be doing what you start off doing, right? So keep an open mind is something I would say now, and I would again repeat at the end of the session. That's one of the key things. And because the world is changing very rapidly, economies are changing, technologies are changing, but it's still important to make a good choice that you can enjoy and you can like based on what you know today. Obviously, you don't know what's coming in 10 years. At that time, you can make another decision. But right now, it's time for you to think about what makes sense for you. And I thought like the field that I am in, analytics, would be a good one to talk to you guys about from a career perspective, because it is sort of getting a lot of buzz in the media. Every day you open newspapers or magazines, people are talking about shortage of talent in data science or analytics and how companies are hiring. But at the same time, it is good to always know what is this field a bit about, what does it take to succeed in this field, um, and if it's not the kind of field that you may enjoy, then even surviving in the field can become difficult, right? Because it's a everything is competitive nowadays, and you go into a field that you don't enjoy or it's not really matching with your skill set, you may not be thinking of thriving, but surviving, right? So that's why the topic is about surviving and thriving both, right? First, you enter any new job. First 1 year, you have to make sure that you can fit in and you can survive, and then you kind of focus on, okay, how do I now grow from here? So that's the title, surviving and thriving. But the period of change is the critical element that we'll talk about today. That analytics as a field is a field itself in transition. Other things around it are in transition. So you have to keep in mind many things before you consider this as a career. Okay, so let's jump straight in. And I think thanks to our Zoom features, you can always put your questions in the chat. I would prefer to leave some 15-20 minutes for just answering the questions at the end. But if I see a question that might look very urgent, we can have a look at that as well. All right, let's keep moving. Yeah. So I talked about the title of my topic, surviving and thriving in analytics careers. And so I've talked about this topic in other forums, before, especially in corporates where I'm talking to people who are already in analytics, but they have just started out. And sometimes, I get asked questions like, hey, what do you mean surviving? This field is booming right now. There's shortage of people. Everybody who is in the job, has a lot of opportunities. Why talk about surviving? But the reason I say it is that yes, from the outside, this field looks obviously glamorous and exciting because of everybody talking about it. But once you are in the role in analytics in any organization, there are many things going on that you need to keep track of. So the first one is that in corporates, what's happening right now is, all the senior management believes that data science and analytics, and when I say analytics, I include data science. Data science and analytics is going to solve all our problems. They are going to build exciting algorithms, models, and that's going to drive our business, transform our business, right? They look at a company like Uber, they look at a company like Google, who have created exciting products using data science and analytics. Okay, so the moment you enter the organization as a data scientist, there will be a lot of expectations from you, right? So you have to be ready to meet those expectations. Second is, what is also changing in this field is the role of humans versus the role of technology, right? And many times you are seeing science fiction movies in which there are human characters in the movie, but there is a supercomputer who is also a character. Maybe he is a villain or something like that, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen movies like 2001: Space Odyssey, where the supercomputer on the spaceship is the villain. So what's happening is that the field of analytics and data science is also a little bit of a competition between humans and technology, because technology is growing very rapidly. And in many ways, many things in analytics that humans were doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, now technology is doing. Okay, so like when I started, getting into this field, I had to build my own regression model. I had to know the whole theory of regression, all the concepts from beginning to end, and build it myself. Now, all you do is pretty much enter parameters. There's a black box that builds the model, and all you get is an output, some coefficients and so on, right? So a lot of the human work has been replaced by technology. So you will be competing not only with other humans in the job, but you will also be competing with machines. So that's the other reason why there is some challenges that you will encounter in this field, and you have to be prepared for it. It's not a challenge that cannot be overcome. Humans are still, in so many ways, much smarter than machines, and we can keep ourselves being very relevant and very valuable, even if machines are getting better. The third thing I think is very important is, analytics being a new field. When you join an organization, in which department is analytics located? Uh, is there a question, or can we all be on mute in case there is no question? Yeah. So which department in the organization you join can impact a lot in terms of how successful you are or impactful you are in analytics. So you may join the IT department and be an analytics person in IT. You could be in the finance department. You could be in the marketing department. Depends, right? You could be in the engineering department. So that is another thing that one has to consider before, let's say, you jump into a job in analytics. So again, all of these things are good things to think about. And even when you interview with companies, let's say for analytics roles, you can ask them questions around these themes. Like, okay, what is expected from analysts? How much is the importance of humans versus technology or something like that, right? Or you may have your own ideas that you can share with them. And then which department of the organization would analytics be in, and so on. And if you consider these things carefully and then you join an organization, that will be, I would say, a thoughtful way to make a choice. Otherwise, I've seen people who struggle, who don't think through all these things, or they're unhappy in a role in analytics. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to share. Then I think what I want to say is analytics tasks that you may do in an organization. Typically, I would say I've thought about this. I was able to come up with 4 ways to classify, but then you may think of a 5th way, or somebody else may have a 5th way. So I'm saying 4. It's not a golden number. It could be different. But for the purpose of discussion, I think I would point these 4 out. So the first is what I call helping run operations and projects. And there's an acronym that corporates use called RTB, like run the business, or some say business as usual. So day-to-day operations of the company nowadays requires a lot of analytics and data science. So it could be marketing operations, sales operations, it could be your supply chain operations, right? A lot of finance back office operations like payment processing, etc., is done by using analytics and so on. The second is, on a day-to-day basis, you need some insight from the business to make day-to-day decisions, right? So you need to know, okay, you're running a marketing campaign. Is it hitting the right target? Are you getting some good sales from this campaign or not, right? If you're in a manufacturing function, you may want some day-to-day insight on, okay, you changed the machine configuration. Is it now resulting in better efficiency in terms of your production process and so on? Okay. The third area within this RTB is optimization, which is basically what it means is that you have fixed amount of resources, and with those fixed amount of resources, how do you optimize or maximize your output, right? So do you change the mix or combination of resources in such a way that you can increase your output, right? So all companies are looking for optimizing their processes day to day, and that is another important area where I see data analytics and data science being applied. So potentially you could go into an analytics career or join a company where they will ask you to use analytics for this kind of work. That's one. The second one, what we do in analytics is using it to provide a single source of truth. So basically, analytics becomes a scorekeeper, keeping the scorecard for the organization, the umpire or the referee for the organization. And what we often call single source of truth. Because many times what happens is, if you are CEO of a company and you call 4 people into the boardroom, you call the head of marketing, head of finance, head of operations, and probably one more person, let's say, head of human resources, let's say, and you ask a question, all four will give different answer. So that's the question is a number. They want the CEO wants a number. Uh, all four may have a different number, and they will all be equally confident in their number. They think that what number they are providing the CEO is the best number, and then a lot of time is wasted, a lot of energy is wasted on deciding which number is the right number. Okay, and it's not necessary that the final number that is considered right is actually the right number. It could be some political issue in the organization. It could be the person who is talking the loudest, his or her number becomes the final number, and so on. So what organizations are realizing is that they need a department or they need a team that will be the single source of truth. So their job is to make sure that they maintain the scorecard of how the organization is doing, or different numbers like, okay, how many active customers we have, those kind of things. And those should be the numbers that everybody in the organization should then use, so that what I just described, the situation, does not happen. Everybody goes to that team, or that team maintains a warehouse, data warehouse, from where everybody is supposed to get the number, and that is the official number for everyone. So, important role for analytics in organization, and that gives you a lot of power and influence in the organization. So even if you are a data scientist, a junior data scientist in the company, and people know that there are certain metrics that you are responsible for, don't be surprised that you directly get an email from the CEO saying, can you tell me this number? Because the CEO may know that this is the person to go to for this particular number. Okay, so that's one very important role analytics is playing, is in being single source of truth for metrics that describe the performance of the organization or describe certain parameters or properties of the organization. So that's very, very important role that analytics is playing. The third thing I'm mentioning here is integrity. What does integrity mean? Integrity means that it is the most unbiased way of looking at the business. Okay, so in many organizations, analytics is placed either as an independent department, or they're placed with a department that the CEO considers to be the unbiased department in their organization. Because what happens is, many times if an analyst is sitting inside the marketing department, the marketing team does an expensive ad campaign, then the analyst may not be fully objective if the campaign is a failure. The analyst may actually try to tell a story which will show the marketing department in a positive light, or it may try to tell that the campaign was, it was probably not a failure, it was a partial success or something. And senior management today needs unbiased opinion, right? And sometimes what happens is when they go to a specific department, they may only get a partially unbiased or maybe even a biased opinion. So analysts and data scientists are playing an important role in organizations to provide integrity in terms of what is actually happening in the company, in terms of investments. Company made X amount of investment. Is it actually delivering value or not? The straight answer for that will only come from analytics, and the board and CEO will want that. So again, that gives you a lot of power in the organization if you are in that kind of role. Okay, so this is one of the newer roles, I would say. It's not in countries like US, it is more mature. In India, I think people are still getting used to analytics playing this role, but definitely it's going to be one of the key roles. Next one, which I think is very exciting for talented young people like yourself, is opportunity mining. Because what happens in business is, people are obviously focusing on running the business of today, but senior management is constantly looking for, okay, what is that next opportunity that we should go after? We should invest money in, we should hire and build teams for, right? That's called opportunity mining. And a lot of the opportunity mining kind of work needs to be done by using a lot of the data in the company, external data from either competitors or industry, and doing a lot of complex analysis, whether it is forecast-based analysis, simulation-based analysis, machine learning-based analysis, etc. So data scientists and analysts have a lot of role to play in helping the management of companies hunt for the next business opportunity. And this kind of work is truly something, if you do it well, you can become quite influential and your career can grow in the organization. So whenever you're talking to an organization about, okay, if they're saying that we have a role for data scientist, ask them about, okay, what kind of work we can get to do. Like helping run ops and projects is good, but I would say number two and number three would be things that can actually put your career on a faster track if you get a chance to do those things. Right? One is very important, but two and three are the ones which can drive your career to the next level faster. And next up is, I think, data and tools innovation. So here's the thing, right? So before I go into more depth on data and tools, I would say that each of these four types of areas might require a slightly different type of personality also. So many people, they like the day-to-day action. They want to be in the thick of action. They want to be like on the shop floor of the company and to see all the processes running. They want to constantly figure out how I can make this process better. How can I run it smoothly? How can I save the company money by improving the process? For those kind of people, number one is very exciting. They really enjoy number one. There are other people, for them maybe that is not as exciting, but what they would like to do is to play that role where three, four different people have different opinions, but then they will say that, look, let me close my eyes. I'm going to come up with a solution which will tell all these people that what the true answer is. And not all of them will be happy. So some of them will be happy, some of them will be unhappy. But being a referee, just like you see in a cricket match also, when the referees give a decision, half the people are happy, half the people are unhappy. So you may have to deal with that situation. But many people enjoy that kind of work, where they are given this responsibility to come up with that single truth, and they have to then manage other people and give expert opinion. Okay, but that work may not have that kind of speed as number one has. So people in number two may not want that kind of high speed work, but they want to go deep. Number three again is good for the people who are good at dreaming and ideating for the future. They are constantly thinking of, okay, company is doing very well in this right now, but what else we can do? So more of a startup mindset or an entrepreneur mindset, if you have, you will really enjoy number three. Now let's come to number four. So number four is really good for people who have that sort of an engineer mindset, that let me build a product, okay, and I'm calling it like a tool here, but like a product that everybody in the company can get access to data through that product, right? Right now in the company, data is being moved around through Excel spreadsheets, and it's very cumbersome. Half the people have access to data, other half don't have access to data. How can I come in and build a tool from scratch or a product from scratch that can give everybody in the company access to data? Or can I build an internal app that everybody, right from C-level people to entry-level people, can use to know, okay, how the company is doing, what's the market share, how's our sales growth, etc. So people who got attracted to number four are those engineers, like who want to build stuff, right? And they want to be technical and building stuff. And this is also a very important role right now in the company. There's a lot of emphasis in companies on data and tools. And you may see jobs, that are called data engineering jobs. These jobs fall into this category, data engineering. Some people may like to call them IT jobs. I say that they are more analytics than IT. Okay, IT I consider a different field from analytics. And data and tools would fall somewhere in between, but more on the analytics side. And I call it data engineering. That's kind of the engineering flavor. These are the four things that sort of four tracks that you can go on. Now, I think I want to give you guys a flavor of what I can see coming over what is happening right now, plus what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years. So I talked about these four kind of jobs, right? Four kinds of tasks you can do. And now I talked about how technology is rapidly growing, changing, and so on. So AI, ML is coming, automation, AM is automation. All these technologies are improving day by day. And some of the kind of tasks will be impacted more with this change. than others. Which ones are going to be most impacted by the AI revolution? So operations will definitely get impacted quite a bit. In fact, already we are seeing a lot of things that people in my organization used to do. We needed like 5 people for 5 years ago. Today, I need only one person because I'm able to do many of those tasks by AI and ML. Okay, so operations is definitely going to get impacted. So if you are someone who is entering into the operations side of analytics today, be aware that your impact as a human being will be reduced over time by technology, and you may need to constantly think of, okay, I don't want to become redundant. What else can I, what new skills I can gain so I don't become redundant? So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. The data and tools innovation will also get impacted by AI and ML. We will still need very good product managers. We will need very good designers, but a lot of the detail work will be done by AI ML. That revolution is probably still 5 to 10 years away. So even if you join the data and tools side right now, I would say I don't see any concern. At least for the next 5 to 10 years, you will be able to do add a lot of value as an engineer. But then you want to move more into the management or the leadership role as a product designer or a product manager. And then you can apply technology to solve your problems. But design is in your hand. Then some of the tasks I mentioned, they are going to be partially impacted by AI and ML and automation. Insights, you're always going to need a human being to make the insights practical, to make the insights real and useful. Optimization is something that, yes, you can write an algorithm and it can give you some optimization, linear programming type problem. But in a real organization, in a university, you can do an optimization problem purely with math. In a real world, optimization is partly science and partly art, because you have multiple departments. Okay, based on the algorithm, if one department's budget is being cut, they may not be too happy. You have to negotiate with them. So you have to figure out a way that the optimization can be done in a way that organization does not have major conflicts internally, right? And the impact on people has to be understood and so on. So you have to find solutions which are partly science and partly human. And so humans will play an important role, and you have to be involved in that process. Also, measuring performance and so on. Again, I would say similar things. A lot of times, performance of let's say an ad campaign or a major investment you make in engineering, there is no black and white answer. Yeah, you'll get a lot of good information from models and data, but then you have to understand the context, and as a human, apply that context to understand what really happened. So not totally impacted, but yeah, some things can be automated. And the least impacted part is the opportunity mining I talked about, like you being kind of an entrepreneur inside your organization and thinking of what future opportunities are there. Doing things like the measurement and integrity, being the referee and umpire. Ultimately, real organizations are complicated. Computers cannot be the referee. You need a human third umpire, right, or second umpire, whatever you call it. So those jobs will remain exciting. Okay, so let me go on. I have just a couple of more slides. Sorry, this thing is not moving. Yeah. Did I skip a slide? No, I did not. Okay. Yeah. So I think in this slide, I wanted to give you some thoughts on the mindset you need to have, when you go into an analytics career or data science career. So first thing I'm calling is avoid a silo mindset. Now, what does that mean? See, what happens in organizations is that data is sitting in different parts of the organization. And it is very easy for organizational departments to create walls around their departments. So the data that is sitting in one department is not available to other departments. The reasons for this are complicated. It could just be that people don't realize that they need to share their data with other departments. So they kind of keep their data very secure, not realizing that by doing that, somebody else who needs the data is not able to use it. Second could be that they feel that, oh, if I share this data with another department, maybe my department's importance will go down, etc. Right? So there are many reasons why organizational data can sit in different places and there are walls around it. That's what I call a silo. Now, what happens is that as a data scientist, when you join the organization, you may have access to data in one part of the organization and you're not able to get access in another part. And it is very important to not have the same mindset as these other departments that, oh, I don't want to share my data. As a data scientist or analyst, you have to constantly figure out how can I access data from other departments to solve the problems. Because mostly in organizations, the kind of problems that data scientists have to solve will require data from multiple departments. So it's very important for a data scientist to not have this silo mindset that I'm talking about. They should not think like how people in other functions are thinking. Like they need to be breaking down the walls. They should go to other departments and say, look, explain to them why it's important for that data to be shared. Okay? And so that we can build, you may have heard phrases like data lake and all that. Data lakes are basically meant to break these silos so that everybody can contribute their data and everybody can drink from that data. It's like a lake from where all the all the animals in the jungle can come and get their water. It's not like elephants have their own separate water and tigers have their own separate water. It's kind of like, I'm just trying to give a simple analogy. So that's one thing to have. The mindset should be, hey, how can I break the walls in the organization and get data from different places? Because most organizations, the large ones, have become so large that nobody knows what other data is there. They only know the data that's there in their department. So yeah, so break the silo. Second is always question status quo. See, your job as a data scientist or an analyst is that you should not just believe in people's opinion of how things should be done. You should let the data speak for itself and let the data tell an answer for how it can be done better or differently. So your job is to be the representative of data's voice and say, okay, we are doing things this way right now. Why are we so sure this is the right way? Have you tried a different way? Or, can we look at a different way to solve this problem? So always be questioning the status quo. Just because somebody is senior to you in the organization doesn't mean that you have to believe everything they say. You, with the data as your friend, can question everything. So that is a mindset that's very important. That requires some courage. It requires confidence. Immediately after finishing college, you may not have that. But if you want to succeed in this field, you have to develop that. Okay, it is to succeed as an analyst or data scientist. It's not just about knowing the mathematics or the coding or the algorithms. You need a lot of other things, like the curiosity, courage, confidence. Otherwise, you will not succeed. You will struggle. The next point I want to make is, and this is something you may want to decide a little early in your career. So in any organization, data scientists or analysts can go in one of two directions. You may be going in a direction where you are solving product or technology problems for the organization, or you may go in a direction where you may be solving business problems for the organization. Business would be things like marketing, finance, let's say. Product tech would be like, problems the engineering group is facing, the group that is building apps is facing, those kind of teams, right? So, and both are equally exciting. Both have very exciting problems, importance. The company management will want both of them to be solved. But the kind of people I have seen who do well in product tech type track versus business track are very different. So once you join the organization, even before joining, you do research on the organization, try to figure out which one I will enjoy. Would I like to solve problems on the tech side of the organization or on the business side? So I'll give you a very simple example, right? Take an e-commerce company, whether it's eBay, Flipkart, Amazon, etc. There, we need data scientists to improve our app. Okay, so these are obviously the data scientists who can help us figure out which features work well on the app and customer experience. But we also need data scientists to help us find out, okay, which new category of products should we sell, or which category is growing fast and that we need to sell it better, or what is the best pricing we should offer. That's it. Both are totally different types of problems, and they require different kind of interest and mindset. Yeah. So think about that as well on which vector you want to follow. And the last point, but very important, is have a CXO lens on the problems. Okay, you may start off your career being the junior employee, and people at the C level may not notice your ideas, but that doesn't matter. When you are working on your problem, think like, okay, if I am the CEO or the chief operating officer of the company, what should I do? If this is my own company, I started this company, and I am the chief operating officer or chief marketing officer, what would I do or what should I do? See, when you think from that kind of mindset, you think about the problem very differently. You look at the data differently. You look at what data can do differently. But if you just think about, okay, whatever I will do, whatever my boss tells me, that's my job, you will think about everything very differently. So don't think like, oh, I have to just do what my boss tells me. Think like you are the owner of the company or you are a CXO in the company, regardless of whether you are actually being considered a CXO or not. That does not matter. Because if you apply the CXO lens, I have seen very junior people, fresh out of college, when they apply CXO lens, they stand out. When senior people like myself, when we are in a presentation and we see them talk, they are talking in a different way than somebody who is there just because their boss told you them to go there. Okay, so this I think is very important. Just knowing your coding and math is not enough. The mindset, all these four things I mentioned, are going to be very important. And this is the right time for you to kind of start thinking of the mindset. Because if you go with the wrong mindset and keep that same mindset for 5, 10 years, then changing it is more difficult. But having this good mindset from the beginning will help you in your career in a huge way. So I think those were the slides from my side. I didn't want to, torture you with too many slide details, but I'm happy to take questions. I'm seeing some activity on the chat, which I
Yes,
will
sir.
open up. Yeah. So I'll open up.
Yes, there is. It was an invigorating session, sir. Really, a lot of information, a lot of insightful information. And in response to that, we've got loads of queries from the participants. I
Yeah,
myself have some questions,
sure.
and so we'll start with some questions. We have a question
Yeah.
from Nidhi that while a person who is interested in a career in analytics is just starting,
Hmm.
does analysis in on fields and departments, like you told that the four major divisions that you did, and there are different analytics departments in different like
Hmm.
finance and tech. So are there some common skills or strategies in analysis that are unique to those fields or like common to all of them?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Uh, see, I think in general, the field of analytics is a field which doesn't have extremely rigid and fixed kind of methodologies. The field is still young, and what I am seeing is that people have flexibility to develop their own methodologies based on the problems. There is no like copyright or standard methodologies that are used by all organizations. Yeah, in some cases, maybe in some banks and so on, and in a few areas, there might be some things which are very standardized because the banks are regulated by governments, and the governments may say, okay, you can only apply this approach to do risk analysis or something. Those are exceptions. But in general, I think when you approach any of these four types of work, the most important thing that you have to start with is what exactly is the problem I'm trying to solve, because that is the first step. And then what you have to figure out is what are the different data sources I need to solve this problem. The step that comes after that is the methodology. Now, You can apply very standard methodologies that you learned in college, statistical techniques and so on to solve it. But when it comes to something like applying machine learning, for example, nowadays, that is a very exciting area right now because there is a huge library of different types of models people are building, and because of open source, they are available to everybody else. There are a lot of libraries being built. Um,
Mm.
Whether you're doing the option one, the running the business type analytics, or doing opportunity sizing, you will have ample choice of techniques out there. But what is more important is for the business problem you are trying to solve, which technique would make the most sense. So I'll tell you because
Yeah.
we hire interns sometimes, and what I see with interns is that they say that no, I like this technique and I'm only going to apply this technique. But then we tell them that
Yeah.
look, this technique is not actually efficient for our business problem. Try something else or create your own technique. So there is nobody stopping you from creating your own technique. So I would say that obviously the difference in techniques is not so much about one, two, three, those four categories, but more about your business problem. Okay, so the business problem that you're trying to solve, you need to figure out, is this a problem that I want to solve only for one time, or I need a repetitive solution? This problem will come up like every week, every month. Depending on
Mm.
that, you may choose one technique versus another. Second,
Mm.
how much time do I have? Do I have like a few days to get the answer, or do I have a month? That can have a huge impact on which technique you apply. Okay, because there are some shortcut techniques and there are some longer techniques. Okay, so you have to be aware of the problem and the situation and the context, and that will determine the technique. Not so much whether it is a
Yeah.
opportunity problem or mining problem or a data operation sort of business operations problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, what's basically you're saying that the field is new and we have the freedom to develop our own techniques, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
And you have been, sir, in this field for more than 25 years, and you like learning from history in every field, uh, all over the course of its development of a field. Some techniques become the mainstream, like this is the benchmark. We have to follow this. But
yes.
since this field is relatively new, you are one of the prime examples of having developed new strategies. So in that course of your journey of those 25 years of your career, what were the major challenges that you faced, and what were some of the common virtues that you used to overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, sure. So let me give you that kind of story, like in terms of a flashback. Like I think when I started off, analytics did not exist as a field, right? So what was the prominent way that companies used to use data to solve problems was market research. So basically, companies at that time had not figured out how to use internal data. So for any problem, they would say, okay, let's do a survey with our customers. Okay, then, so that's how I started off. Like, I used to work in customer loyalty consulting, and we would always conduct surveys and sometimes even do focus groups to confirm certain things and so on. Now, when the data started becoming available and companies said that, look, now we have a database and I want you to build my database and add more customer insight in there. That was the first big challenge I remember facing because doing market research is more straightforward. You have a lot of control. You go, you create a survey, you go out there, ask questions, your data comes back to you. It's a very clean data in a simple, file. In those days, we used to use SAS or SPSS, to analyze the data. Very simple, and we could apply all our textbook techniques for regression, clustering, etc. Then what happened is when we started working on database, one, the internal company database was very, how do you say, incomplete. So, there would be like, if there's a million customers, on certain percent of customers, you would have all the data, certain percentage of customers, you would have only 70% data, like age, let's say take age, income, what car they own, where do they live, that kind of information. So it was all very incomplete. So we had to figure out, okay, how do we work with incomplete data? Okay, so that was one. Today, because of digital, I think a lot of those holes in the data have been plugged because most people, we know a lot of things about people. We didn't know so many things about people back then, in 10, 20 years ago. So going from surveys to database itself was a big challenge. Like, how do you adapt to that incomplete data? And then how do you make sure that the database is constantly being refreshed? Because different parts of the organization have to keep on giving input to you, so the database will remain current. Otherwise, if nobody pays attention, when you go into the database, the data is already like 6 months old and you can't really use it to take any action. So that was the first big challenge with going from just surveys to database. Next big challenge was going from database to digital. Because in digital, what happened is that data was coming in very fast and it was a lot more data. The big problem was data was very unclean. So before, like a lot of sophisticated tools came that would massage the weblog data, it's called. Weblog is the click data from websites. We had to figure out, customized solutions to be able to make sense of digital. And the other thing was the data was coming like daily, maybe hourly, but we don't have methodologies available to analyze it. If you look at any old textbook and all, nobody had figured out how to analyze data that's coming so fast. So that was the first time we had to then find ways to aggregate data, convert daily data, hourly data into daily, daily into weekly, so that we could analyze. Then when machine learning came, that gave us capability to analyze the very fast moving data. But the difficulty was that we were very used, coming from the previous era, we were used to supervised learning. Like building all the models was what we called supervised learning. And then for us, it was a very new thing to let the machine learning decide how the model will run. So I don't know if many of you are familiar with machine learning, but maybe I'm using some jargon here. But you can run a model by specifying how you want the model to be run, what shape, form, parameters, or you can let the model decide. So that was very uncomfortable for us initially to trust the machine. Like, what is the machine going to do?
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, you have to figure out, okay, what came out of the machine, does it make sense? Because machine doesn't understand the business. You understand the business. So then you take the machine output and then combine it with your business knowledge to give something to, let's say, your boss or your stakeholder that made sense, right? So it's constant learning that we are going through. Every stage things keep changing, and right now I think what's happening is that the big challenge for data scientists would be, again, as I said, like there's so many different models and algorithms available. You have libraries of them in open source. Which one to choose and use, right? It's not like, in the old days when one or two authors were famous and everybody used their textbook. Now you have like million textbooks. Which one do you use to solve your problem?
Yeah.
So the thing that I like to focus on when one is facing this kind of a very confusing situation is be very clear about your business problem. You're not trying to win a Nobel Prize here. You're trying to solve a business problem. So focus on the customer, focus on the business problem. What is the easiest solution to solve the problem? I would say that is the best way to approach, because there is no end to complexity. You can build more and more and more complex models using all the complicated math we are all learning in engineering colleges, etc. Right? But you have to know where to draw the line and find a practical solution. If companies, startups, like Ola or etc., had just focused on going more complex, they would have never been able to do business. They all figured out a practical way to apply data technology to solve problems quickly. Speed is important, right?
Yeah.
Your boss will not have patience for you to keep creating the perfect model. You're not doing a thesis. So yeah, that's how I would sort of describe the challenges and how we are dealing.
Yeah, so one of the things that I noticed in your answer is that transition from the old phase to the new phase, right? That was a tough thing to do. And in the slide also, you told us to always challenge the status quo, right? To
Yeah.
always be truthful about the data and be the representative for the data, speak for the data. So, sir, I would like to ask that at your time also, the generation previous to your generation, those people who were used to the old ways of doing the work.
Mhm.
How did you politely make them agree to using these new ways, and how can we as a
Yeah.
new career, uh, how can we give that advice or suggest those methods to our seniors without like offending the hierarchy?
Yeah, yeah. So I think one thing that I remember doing back then is see what value you have to bring as a fresh let's say fresh cohort in the field is can you look at the business problem a bit differently? Okay, instead of just trying to tell the existing people how they can do things better, because when you are able to make people look at a business problem differently, they themselves then start believing in changing their approach. Whereas if you just try to solve the exact same thing that they were solving, but just using a different methodology, they will resist more. So try to focus on applying a fresh perspective on the problem rather than trying to just solve the exact same problem but using a different technique. Okay, so let me think of an example here. So I've done, like, for example, a lot of work I've done was in advertising at one stage of my career. I was, quite deep in helping my organization improve its advertising performance. And at that time, a lot of the people who had been in the field for already for 30 years and all, the way they were thinking is that I want to focus on creating campaigns that reach the maximum number of people. And all the techniques they were developing were based on how to reach maximum number of people. And when I came in, and not just me, but there were others from my cohort, we looked at the problem a bit differently. For us, it was very natural to think that you don't need to reach 1 million people. But if you reach 1 lakh people, like one tenth of that, but these lakh people are more targeted, they will actually be more likely to buy your product. That is a better way to spend your advertising money. Because what used to happen is, in those days, people would go to the CEO and proudly say, look, I have created a campaign that reached 1 million people. But nobody was telling how many of those million were actually the right customers and watching the thing, right? So that then, when I would come in with that approach and make them think about, okay, have you tried to think about this approach? Then things would click for them that yes, this may be a better approach because this way I can save more money. I don't need to I don't need to be on so many TV channels or do so many magazines to communicate my message. So you have to help them look at the problem differently is the key. And then from there on, then they will actually start collaborating with you to
Yeah.
solve the problem. You need their help, right? You're right. You can't offend them in a way. They
Hmm.
also have many things they can offer you. So you have to find a way for them to collaborate with you.
Yes, sir. Sir, like you said here that you worked in advertising for a time, and certainly I can like speculate that at that time of your career, it was also the time that giants like Apple were coming up with the advertisement campaigns of like think different campaigns.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to ask that as an analyst, right?
Hmm.
How does these market trends that the giants like come up with or follow? How does these trends affect the markets? Like Amazon or Flipkart, eBay, these are giants in the e-commerce world. So
Hmm.
how does the strategy that one comes up affects the others or the trends in the other companies?
Yeah, I think I would say that in the current era, there is less of that. Like I think I would say compared to like say 20 years ago when one company would do something and everybody would try to follow that. Today, companies are becoming a little bit more alert and sharp about not just blindly following others. So what most companies are trying to do is to identify their niche or the area where they are very strong, if the other competitor is doing something which doesn't really threaten that section of the business, they may not actually follow. So business or even just trends have become more of a way to for companies to get motivated. Like, okay, if somebody else has done something, you feel that, okay, I need to also do some innovation, but not necessarily everybody will follow the leader, because the reason for that also is that what we are also seeing in last 20 years, that when online and digital has come up, so many examples where small companies who come in with a completely new idea are disrupting
Yeah.
or toppling the bigger players. So
Yeah.
the respect for other companies' ideas is less, right? So if Coke does something, doesn't mean that Pepsi and everybody else will necessarily follow
Yeah.
that. They will
Yeah.
think, okay, wait a minute, let me think about, is there is we should also do something different, but what is it that's good for us, not necessarily
Hmm. Hmm.
for that company. And I would say in something like analytics also, it's same thing. Like, just because one company is using analytics for one kind of thing,
Hmm.
another company should not just blindly try to do that. It may not work for them. They may apply analytics better in something else,
Yeah.
some other area.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like in your last answer, you said that have a target audience, right?
Yes,
Like other companies, Flipkart attracted audiences by faster delivery or a cash on delivery that the Amazon previously did not have. Yeah,
yes,
applying strategies like that.
right,
Okay.
right, right.
Yes, sir. It was really enlightening to hear from you. All those answers that you gave were, it exceeded all my expectations, as it did for the other participants too. Thank you, sir, for coming here. We were honored to have you.
Yeah, it's great to have a chance to speak to all of you. So it's my privilege to speak to all of you, and I hope all of you have great careers ahead and make good choices. I think your generation has a lot more choices than, let's say, we had 25 years ago. But then you also have to then think more carefully, given you have more choices. So take whatever input you can get, but then ultimately in the end, only you will have the answer for what's good for you. So you have to make the decision in the end for yourself. So all
Yes,
the best.
sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
During the session, that was one thing that came into my mind, that things have become easier for us because of the work that your generation did. So I wanted to thank you
Thank
for
you.
that too.
Well, thanks,
Thank
very
you,
kind
sir.
of you. Thanks a lot. Enjoy.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye.